Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
Axel jam si Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do dede. Luta mo nulo jel mo to nga andil mahalis. Hello?
Bisul mo fine.
What?
Bisul mo fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Axina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave. Bisul mo fine? Wave. Your money is yours.
Today is April the 8th, and this time last month, on exactly March the 8th, the world was commemorating International Women's Day, that day that celebrates the achievements of women and marks a call to action for women's equality. In fact, in many countries, the entire month of March is celebrated as Women's Month. And then yesterday, April the 7th, was World Health Day. And as if on cue, the theme for this year's World Health Day was all about prioritizing women's longer-term health and well-being. So when I sat down to reflect on a subject for this month's podcast, I found that I too was drawn to the subject of women's health and well-being, particularly the health and well-being of women in their later years. And the more I researched and consulted about the subject of healthy aging in women, often with my own women friends, mind you, the more I found myself dealing with a subject that we hardly ever talk about openly in our society, a subject that is generally considered something of a taboo, and certainly a taboo for men to discuss. In fact, a subject that is such a taboo that very few of our local languages even have a name for it. Incidentally, the word taboo comes from a Polynesian word meaning sacred, forbidden, or not to be touched or spoken of. But history tells us that all too often what is considered taboo is exactly what needs to be discussed. And it's when we don't discuss these so-called taboo subjects that they take on all manner of myths and misunderstandings. So, emboldened and encouraged by that quote, here we go. Menopause. Now, some might wonder why it's called menopause and not, say, womenopause, given that it is all about a phenomenon, a condition, an experience that is peculiar to women. But the word menopause actually has nothing to do with the word men. It comes from two Greek words, men meaning month, which is related to the women's monthly menstrual cycle, and pausis, meaning a stopping or cessation. And so menopause literally means the stopping of the monthly menstrual cycle. And when does menopause begin? For most women, menopause happens somewhere between the ages of 45 and 55, with the average age being around 51. Technically, the definition of menopause is when a woman has gone 12 months in a row without her period. Those are some of the basic facts about menopause that I suspect many of us might already be aware of. But because we shy away from open discussions about menopause, there are a number of misleading myths and misconceptions about menopause that it would be worthwhile correcting, if only to help give men a better understanding and appreciation of what their mothers and sisters and our women folk in general go through. And well, for what it's worth, here are my top 5 misconceptions and myths about menopause. Firstly, menopause does not just happen overnight, because menopause is not a single event. It is a gradual process that unfolds over several years. It begins with perimenopause, the transitional phase when hormone levels start to fluctuate. During this time, symptoms like hot flashes, mood swings, and sleep disturbances begin to show up. And this phase alone can last anywhere from 4 to 10 years. And then comes menopause. But even after menopause, there's also the period of postmenopause, which comes with its own changes and adjustments. So rather than thinking of menopause as a switch that is suddenly turned off, we need to think of menopause as more like a slow, shifting sunset that gradually fades over time. Secondly, it is not just older women who go through menopause. It's true that the average age for the onset of menopause is around 51, but that's just an average and not a rule. Many women begin their transition much earlier. What is known as early menopause occurs before age 45, and premature menopause can happen even before the age of 40. So menopause isn't just an older woman's experience. It's a life phase that can come earlier than expected, and one that needs greater recognition across all ages. Thirdly, menopause is not just about hot flashes and mood changes and period stopping. Hot flashes and mood changes are indeed a part of the story, but in reality it goes well beyond that. Menopause is a complex transformation, one that can impact a woman's body, her mind, her relationships, and sometimes even her sense of self. From memory lapses and sleep troubles, to joint pain and loss of muscular strength, to mood swings and changes in physical appearance and in sexual health, menopause can be a full-body, full-life experience. Fourthly, and despite all that we've mentioned so far, menopause does not mark the end of a woman's usefulness or the end of her femininity. This is a myth that echoes through generations and across cultures because in so many societies, a woman's value has long been tied to her ability to bear children, to raise a family, and to serve others. And so when menopause comes, signaling the end of fertility, some begin to treat it as the end of the woman herself, the end of her relevance, the end of her beauty, and the end of her power. But menopause is not the end. It does not mark the end of a woman's usefulness or femininity. In fact, for many, it can even become a time of personal clarity, freedom, and renewal. And finally, although menopause is all about women's bodies exclusively, it is more than just a women's issue. It's a life issue, and one that also involves men. Men can help and be supportive by listening and by showing patience, understanding, and empathy toward older women as they go through these dramatic, age-related life changes. And on that note, maybe, just maybe, that men in menopause is there for a reason. Maybe it's there to remind men that they do have an important supportive role to play whenever their mothers and their wives and their sisters are going through this all-important and life-changing stage of the aging process.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do dede. Luta mo nulo jel mo to nga andil mahalis. Hello? Ano lay wa?
Bisul mo fine.
What?
Bisul mo fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Basul Mufine, Wave, your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.